Legion of Payne, UFC 286 recap. I know this video is going up probably a week after UFC 286. It might be going up this Saturday, which makes it a week. It might go up Sunday or Monday, which is over a week. But because this is the first pay-per-view we're covering on the channel, I wanted to still get this video up. And yeah, so I'm sorry this is late. But anyways, UFC 286 recap. Let's get into it. So looking at my notes, for the early prelims, I honestly took 2 notes, and one of them really isn't a note. The first one was Juliana Miller versus Veronica Hardy. If you don't know who Veronica is, it's like Dan Hooker, or not Dan Hooker, it's Dan Hardy's new wife. She hasn't fought in 2 years. She was facing Juliana Miller. It was Juliana Miller's first fight since the Tough 30 or Tough 31, where it was Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes, the team. Juliana Miller had won. I remember she either subbed or knocked out Brogan Walker in the 3rd round. Miller was like a minus 400 favorite for this fight. I picked her in my parlay. I thought with the layoff from Veronica Hardy, I thought Miller would just go right through her. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, were the matchmakers wrong. Like I said, I think she was a minus 400 favorite, and she got 30-27. So crazy to me. I did, when I watched the weight, like I stayed up to watch the weight cuts. They were on, or not the weight cuts. I stayed up to watch the weigh-ins. There was no weigh-in show for UFC 286, which kind of sucks because I really do like to watch the weigh-in shows. But anyways, her weight cut didn't look the greatest. Like, everybody looks somewhat drawn out, but when she actually got on the scale, she looked really drawn out. And that's Juliana Miller I'm talking about. So I don't know if something went bad in the weight cut. I think even DC was saying, like, Juliana just kept running in and just getting pieced up. And I don't know if she was trying to get the takedown, but honestly, Veronica Hardy was a better grappler and just all-around better fighter in that fight. The only other note I have for the entire early prelims is just a sentence, and all it says is Dusko Todorovic knee injury was disappointing. I hope they rebook it. I do hope they rebook it. Christian Leroy Duncan is who he was facing. Like, let's see here. I have it pulled up here. Give me a second. A minute and 52 seconds of the first round, so I have Sherdog pulled up just so I can, see exactly the times. But a minute 52 seconds into the first round, Dusko and Christian, I think it looked like Dusko was going for a takedown or something, but they were grappling, and Dusko just fell down. Christian didn't punch him or anything. Like, he fell down. Lucas Bolzaki, the ref, stopped the fight right there, and then they kind of like isolated it into the replay, and we could see it, and you could literally see a visible, like a pop or like a click snap, whatever you want to call it, and under his skin you could literally see like the pop. So something is super wrong with Dusko's knee. I don't know if that's like the ACL, MCL area. I'm not really sure. Before I made this video, I did look up to see, because like I said, I'm recording this Wednesday night, but I'm gonna post a video before this, and there's still no update on his injury. So who knows how long he's out? I'm gonna guess we're not gonna see Dusko for 8-9 months. Hopefully it's, it's not something serious. But anything with your knee like that, man, I just think it's probably serious, and we won't see him for a while. Straight after that fight was Lerone Murphy versus Gabriel Santos. This is one of those kind of fights where I'm not going to say robbery, because you can't say robbery for every fight, but obviously Santos should have won the fight. If you watch the fight, or if you haven't, I recommend going back and watching it. Lerone Murphy won, I believe, 29-28. On 2, it was a split decision, so on 2 scorecards, I don't think anybody had 30-27 Lerone. But anyways, on the media scorecards, 16 out of the 18 media scorecards had it for Gabriel Santos. I had it 29-28 for Santos as well. I think Murphy won because it was in England. He's from England. I'm not saying it's a robbery, but Santos won. I mean, Santos won the fight. The media thought Santos won the fight, and it's just one of those things where judges are just, in one fight it's damage that counts, and in another fight it's control. And I think all of us MMA fans are getting sick of the judging at this point. But what can you do? I mean, we literally can't do anything. I mean, open scoring, it might help at least, so the person who's getting robbed knows he's getting robbed and going into the last round. But still, I don't think we can do anything about it at this point. So after that whack split decision, we had one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, Mohamed Mokaev, fighting Jafel Filho. I think it's how you say his name. He's from Brazil. It was his UFC debut, and honestly, fighting Mohamed Mokaev in your UFC debut is a horrible fight. Like, it's probably the worst person you could debut against. And he didn't do horrible. He almost got Mohamed out of there. I'm going to go ahead and put a picture on your screen right now of the crazy knee bar. This is what Jafel Filho put Mohamed Mokaev in the 3rd round. I believe he was in this for a good minute and a half, almost 2 minutes, and somehow Mohamed got out of this, and he submitted Jafel after that. He rear naked choked him. This knee bar right here was so deep. Honestly, I'm a little scared. I don't know how how Muhammad's knee is how it's gonna come back from that. Obviously, he didn't tap. He should have tapped. I think it was all heart that he didn't tap. I mean, you see the picture. That has to be some of the worst pain he's ever been in his life. And I just hope that his knee comes back from that. When he did get out of the knee bar, he stood up, and you could tell he literally couldn't walk. And the fact that he then submitted Jafel is crazy. Like, he literally couldn't walk. I think if Philo would have just kind of walked away or somehow like got to disengage from him, I almost wonder if the fight would have been stopped because Muhammad literally couldn't walk. So the fact that he was holding on to Jafel and got him down and rear naked choked him was so impressive. But like I said, I just hope Muhammad Mokaev's knee can recover from this, because I feel like this might be something where your knee is fucked for the rest of your life. I mean, your knee's supposed to go like this, not like this. And his knee, if you look at that picture, I saw like someone who put like an angle degree thing on it, and it was like the degrees, it was crazy, man. I can't believe he got out of that. And what I have written down from this fight is Muhammad Mokaev knee bar was crazy, maybe even worse than Tony Ferguson refusing to tap with Charles Oliveira or Beneil Dariush. Will neither ever be the same. The fact he got out of the knee bar in the first place is crazy, but then got to the finish is next level. Have to wait and see what kind of injury it is, torn ligaments, etc. I didn't actually look up his injury before this. I saw him after the fight. He was on crutches, and I saw his Instagram the other day. He was walking on crutches still, which I'm sure I'm sure there's an injury in there. If you haven't seen it, I really, really recommend going back and watching that fight. Even if you only have time for a few fights on the card, that's one of those fights. I just couldn't get past how crazy that knee bar was, how deep it was in, and it just reminded me of Tony Ferguson in the Beneil fight and in the Charles Oliveira fight, where it's like, I mean, his arm in the Charles Oliveira fight, was it Charles that had him in an arm bar, or was it Beneil? Either way, his arm was fucking backwards, and he didn't tap, and that's all I could think of. Muhammad Mokaev in the knee bar is like Tony Ferguson. And Muhammad Mokaev made a lot of new fans, I think, from that performance. Like I said, the fact he got out of the knee bar and then submitted Jafel, and there was only, I think, like 2 minutes left. Crazy. I can't remember if he got one of the bonuses. If he didn't, man, he should have got one of the bonuses, because that was probably the performance of the night, or the second best performance of the night, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a fan of him, but it was crazy. Little did we know, right after the Muhammad Mokaev fight, we had another horrible scorecard. This might be the worst scored round in the history of the UFC, in the history of MMA. I'm going to say the UFC because that's what I'm most familiar with, like MMA, Bellator 1, PFL. Other than that, I'm sure there's local promotions where there's been a horrible scorecard. But in the UFC, I think this is probably the worst scored round in history. So I'm going to read my note here. That's why I'm looking down. I put worst scorecard in history, a 30-27 for someone who was taken down and did nothing to get up the entire round. Chris Duncan controlled Omar Morales the entire third round, and one judge still gave it to Morales. I don't think, he's not related to Marlon Morales, but I don't know how to say his last. I think it's Morales. He was controlled by Chris Duncan in the third round. You don't have to watch the first two rounds. I had it 19-19 going into the third round, so I thought whoever won the third round was going to win the fight. It was the entire third round, I would say Chris Duncan controlled Omar, and one judge still gave it to Omar. I think, let me go see who it was. All right, so pulling up the scorecards here, Ben Cartilage and Vito Palillo. I'm not sure exactly how you say that. They both gave the first round to Morales. They gave the next two rounds to Duncan. Paul Sutherland, if you're watching this, fucking quit judging MMA. This is a horrible scorecard. He had Morales 10-9 the first round. He had him 10-9 the second round, and he had him 10-9 the third round. The third round, man, I'm getting fired up about this. Go watch the third round of that fight, and if you score that fight for Omar in the third round, you're blind. I do not see how you score it that way. I thought Bruce Buffer made a mistake and said 30-27. I was thinking he meant to say 29-28, but then when they posted the official scorecards, Paul Sutherland literally gave Omar that third round. I don't see it. I don't. There is no way you could score that round for Omar. It still blows my mind. So if you haven't watched it, go watch that. That's literally the worst scored round in UFC. I'm gonna claim that right there. That's the worst scorecard I've ever seen for UFC for one round. I'm not gonna say like for the entire fight, but that round, there's just no way Omar wins that round. It just doesn't happen. I do have to make a little correction there. The Chris Duncan Omar Morales fight actually wasn't directly after Muhammad Mokaev's fight. The fight after Muhammad Mokaev was Sam Patterson versus Yanal Azimov. I know I said his name wrong. I'm a little unfamiliar with him, so I don't know how to say his name quite right yet. Sam Patterson was making his UFC debut. He's from London. I don't know if he's from London. He's from England. He was the bigger favorite in this fight. Yanal was undefeated. He was 7-0 or 6-0 going into the fight, and I believe, let me see, Sam was 10-1, but Sam hadn't lost since 2017. He did have a draw back in 2019, but he hadn't lost since 2017, and he was the favorite in the fight. I looked at the draw. I believe I had Sam Patterson as well. If you just look at Yanal Azimov, his experience, he had only had 6 fights before this. One was in PFL, one was in Cage Fury, and then it was Ring of Combat, which I've heard of Ring of Combat, but then these other two I've never heard of, RN or KNO World Tour and Desert Combat Challenge. I had never heard of those, and honestly, those were in 2017. He took a 4-year break. I don't know if he's a kickboxer, if he's a wrestler. I'm not sure exactly what he is, because like I said, I'm a little unfamiliar with him. So I think Yanal was expected to lose. I don't think anybody thought he was going to win. He came out in the first round, had a crazy knockout of Sam Patterson, and man, that was crazy. The knockout was insane. It was like Sam was falling, and as Sam was falling, Yanal threw a crazy left hand and hit him as he was falling, and that knocked him out. I don't remember if he got tripped or exactly how he started falling, but as he was falling, Yanal hit him with a left hand that knocked him out. The fight should have been called there. I think John Anik even, I think it was, was it Mark Goddard? Yeah, John Anik's like, I love Mark Goddard, but that fight should have, I think he answered like 15 unanswered shots. I thought the stoppage could have came as soon as he hit the ground. I think he was out, and I don't know if just Mark Goddard didn't see it, but Yanal just was on top of him, pounding him. I mean, the guy was out. So yeah, I just wanted to apologize there. The crazy 30-27 round was not directly after Muhammad Mokaev's fight. It was 2 fights after. Just very quickly, I want to say this. The fight that opened up the main card, Marvin Vettori, Roman Dolidze. Marvin won the fight 29-28. Someone had it 30-27. I just like pointing this stuff out. There's another 30-27 card. I don't see how you score it 30-27 for Marvin. The only reason I'm pointing this out is because at the beginning of the video, I said there was like 3 or 4 scorecards I think that were crazy. This was another one. I think it was 29-28 Marvin. I think the entire media scored it 29-28 for Marvin. Someone probably gave it to Dolidze. There's no way there was a 30-27 in there. I just don't see how you see this stuff 30-27. Nowhere near as bad as the Omar Chris Duncan fight, but I did have to point this out. Someone had it 30-27 for Marvin. Wasn't 30-27. So if you look at those scorecards, they're definitely misleading. Very close fight. I don't remember if any of them got a bonus, but honestly, Roman versus Marvin, great fight to watch. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely one to rewatch. Next up, we had Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill. I actually didn't bet on this fight. Casey O'Neill was a huge favorite. She was making her return after an ACL surgery. I want to say she was out like almost exactly a year and a month or something. Her last fight was the beginning of March of 2022 or like the end of February 2022. So she was out a year for her ACL surgery. I think she was a minus 400, and I think the reason she was such a big favorite is because she's undefeated, has a lot of hype behind her being undefeated. Not just being undefeated, but being undefeated and having a few UFC fights under her belt. That's why I think she was such a big a favorite. I didn't touch it. I think coming back from an ACL surgery, obviously huge thing. You haven't fought in a year. And you're fighting Jennifer Maia. I don't think people give Jennifer Maia enough credit. I think Jennifer Maia is a very big test, and I think people were overlooking this. I think everybody thought Casey O'Neill was just gonna go right through her. I didn't see it that way. That's why I didn't bet. That could have easily happened. Like Casey O'Neill could have easily ran through her, but that didn't happen. I mean, Jennifer Maia put on a masterclass. That's actually what I have written down here. Is she put on a masterclass, and I think people were surprised. I think everybody thought because Casey was undefeated, she would run right through her, but it was nowhere near the case. I also put, did she come back too fast? But honestly, I mean, I think, was it Tony Ferguson who came back like 6 months after his surgery, which is crazy. I think that was when he fought Anthony Pettis at UFC 229, Habib versus McGregor, I believe, is when he came back from like a 6-month ACL surgery. I think Casey O'Neill will be back. Obviously she'll be back. I think she could still be a champion. I was actually really impressed with Jennifer Maia. Like I said, I just think people doubted Jennifer Maia. I don't think she gets enough credit for what she's done. Great fighter, and it was a good fight. It was I think it was 29-28 and then 30-27. I don't remember exactly what I scored it for. It was a unanimous decision for Jennifer Maia. It wasn't split or anything. Jennifer Maia just looked way better. Gunnar Nelson, Brian Barberena. I have one sentence written down. Gunnar Nelson looked absolutely impressive with the armbar. Got the armbar over Brian Barberena in the first round. I don't think enough, because obviously the UFC has exploded since the pandemic and whatnot. I don't think a lot of people know who Gunnar Nelson is. I think what was his last fight with Gilbert Burns was like 2019. He took off 3 years and then he just took a break, another year break in between fights. I know when he came back, I want to say he came back last year in London, or it was in England somewhere. It was at the big O2 card last year. He came back and I think he won a decision over Takashi Sato, I believe. So anyways, I don't think a lot of people know who he is. He took a 3-year layoff. He came back in 2022, and it was like a year and a day, or like almost, it was like 1 year from a day that he came back and fought on this card. So I just don't think a lot of people that are newer to the sport know who he is. I had him winning easily. Brian Barberena is great. I don't want to take anything away from Brian Barberena, but his last 2 or 3 wins are over, I think, Jim Miller and Robbie Lawler. They're both legends, but they are also on their way out, and Brian Barberena is a little bit younger, and after that, he faced RDA, and I can't remember who else, and he lost, and so that's why I just had Gunnar Nelson winning. I didn't have Gunnar by submission. I thought it was honestly going to go to decision. Crazy, great, impressive performance by Gunnar. And when he came out, I think Michael Bisping even said he was a little concerned that in the fighter meetings, Gunnar was saying like he almost likes teaching better now than he likes fighting. He doesn't like all the attention on him. And Michael's like, this kind of concerns me. Maybe it's not there. I think he showed you he still has it. He's definitely there. I mean, if you look at his last 2 losses, Leon Edwards, who's now the champion, that was a split decision in 2019. Gilbert Burns, unanimous decision in 2020, he lost to. But look at Gilbert Burns. He just fought for a title, 2 fights ago? Had a crazy fight with Hamzat and Leon Edwards, who's now the champion. So Gunnar Nelson, he could definitely be a real contender in the future, I think. And like I said, he's 34 years old. He's really not that old. I think he could do it one day. So up to the co-main event now is Rafael Fiziev, Justin Gaethje. Rafael Fiziev is a huge favorite. I mean, not huge favorite. He was like minus 250, I think. I didn't see it. Yes, his striking is great, but you're talking about Justin Gaethje here. I just don't see how he's that big of a favorite. I thought maybe it would be a toss-up, but Rafael's a huge favorite. I'm fine with that. I actually parlayed Gaethje and Leon to win, and so I obviously, I made some money on that. I don't see how Justin Gaethje it's like a minus. I think he was like minus 150, minus 200, or a plus 150, plus 200, somewhere around there, underdog. I was surprised at that, so I was fine. I parlayed them together. What I had written down here, though, Rafael looked great the first round. The first round, I could see why he was that big of a favorite. I think Justin was having a problem with his speed, and I think Bisping or Cormier even said that Rafael's very fast. He took over Brad Riddell's job at Tiger Muay Thai. I think is the striking coach. I'm not sure exactly what he took over from Brad Riddell, but he's very, very fast, and I think Justin had a problem with him. Going into the second round, it was way more competitive. I think Justin kind of had his speed a little bit more figured out. It was definitely way more competitive than the first. The first round, I had 10-9 for Fiziev. The second round, I think Justin inched it. I think he won, not by a ton, but I had Justin winning the second round. I have seen online, I saw people saying that Rafael won the second round. I had it for Justin. But going into the third round, it was all Justin. I have it right here. By the end of it, or by the third round, Justin had Rafael figured out and landed nonstop jabs. That's something they say on they said on the broadcast. His jab in the third round was fire. He could not miss with his jab. I think he hit like 4 or 5 jabs in a row, and Rafael just didn't see him. His entire right eye under it was it was almost like a hematoma under his eye, but it wasn't. It was crazy how red and how bad his eye looked. And honestly, this is what I have written down here. I said, by the end of it, I think if there was a fourth round, Justin would have finished him. And I really think that. You could see Rafael was getting tired. I don't even know if he's fought 5 rounds, has he? I think he fought 4 and knocked someone out. I can't remember. I don't think Rafael's ever had 5. I mean, this was a 3-rounder, obviously, but in the third round, Rafael was tired. Justin had him figured out, and Justin easily won the third round. And like I said, I think if that was a 5-round fight, I know if that was a 5-round fight, Justin Gaethje would have got Rafael out of there. He was tired, and very impressive for Justin Gaethje. I am going to make a video on this because during the press conference, Justin Gaethje didn't say what Justin said is he's making one more run at the title, and he thinks he's 1 fight away from getting a title shot, and he called for the loser of Charles Oliveira Beneil Dariush, and I agree with that. That's a great fight. But I am going to make a video on this because I see people saying that, and someone brought it up at the press conference, that he should fight Dustin Poirier. I think that's a great fight. I think Gaethje versus Poirier 2 would be a great fight, but people are saying Gaethje versus Poirier 2 for a title shot, and I don't see how you get that. Last but not least, the main event. I do want to say this before I talk about this. If you would have asked me last week how I saw this main event going, UFC 286, I would have said if it goes to decision, Kamaru's going to win, and if it doesn't go to decision, Leon's going to win. I thought Leon was going to win by a knockout, or Kamaru was going to win by decision. If it went to decision, I did not see Leon Edwards winning personally. Very impressed with Leon's performance. I do verdict scorecards. I had at the end of the fight, after the point deductions, I had 48-46 Leon Edwards. I believe two fighters had 48-46 Leon, and one fighter had it 47-47 for Kamaru. We're going to talk about the fence grabs. We're going to talk about the point deduction. If you didn't see it, Leon Edwards, horrible fence grab. He grabbed it twice, honestly. He grabbed it once, and then he let go of it, and he grabbed it again. And Leon said at the press conference, the post-fight press conference, he felt he should have got a warning. I'm also going to make a video about fence grabs and how I think we can get rid of them, or how I think we can eliminate most of them from happening. Leon saying he should have got a warning, I think is one of the reasons why there is so many fence grabs, because fighters think, oh, I can grab it once and get away with it. I'm not saying all fighters think that. I'm not saying every fence grab is on purpose. I think a lot of fence grabs probably are just in the heat of the moment. It's hard not to grab. I mean, I've never fought in an octagon. I don't know if anybody watching this has, but I'm sure it's very, very hard to not grab the fence. You want to grab it. Someone's taking you down, you're going to look for something to grab. So I'm not saying that every fence grab is on purpose, but Leon definitely grabbed the fence the first time. Could have been an accident. The second time he really grabbed it, Herb Dean stopped it. I think they looked at the replay. I can't remember exactly. He took a point right away. I thought that was perfect. I think you should take a point as soon as someone grabs the fence, and I think that's how we get rid of fence grabs. I do think it's crazy though, because as I'm watching it, he grabs the fence, he takes a point. I start thinking, well, now we're down to a 4-round fight. Like, this could easily be a draw, and I start thinking, like, what if this is a draw? Are we going to get a fourth fight from Leon and Kamaru? Because I think the last title fight that drew, we had Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev, which was a draw, but the title fight before that was Moreno Figueiredo was a draw. So that had me thinking, are we getting a fourth fight of Leon and Kamaru? Luckily, it wasn't a draw. I'm glad it wasn't a draw. I had it 48-46 Leon. I'm going to say that for the third time. But we were one judge away from seeing it a draw, from it actually being a draw. I actually don't have a lot written down about the fight itself. I have a lot about the fence grabs, and then the next thing is the Colby Covington title shot. I think I'm going to make a separate video on that. Leon basically at the press conference said he's not fighting. I mean, he didn't say I'm not fighting Colby, but he says Colby isn't getting a title shot. He said he doesn't think Colby deserves a title shot. And whether he doesn't think he deserves it or getting it, it's going to be crazy, because is Leon going to try to battle the UFC and say, hey, I'm not fighting Colby? Like, we've seen people battle the UFC and it doesn't work out. So I think that's why I'm going to make a separate video on that. But Leon, during the press conference, when they said Dana just said Colby is next for the title, Leon said he's not. I'm very curious to see what happens in the division. I don't have a lot written down about the fight, which kind of sucks. I want to talk about it. I think it was a great fight. I think the point deduction happened in the second round, I believe, when he grabbed the fence. It really just, I don't know. It just surprised me that Leon went to decision. I'm not saying Leon can't go to decision. He went to decision against Nate. He almost went to decision against Kamaru. It wasn't his gas tank I had a problem with. I just don't think, I thought if it goes to decision, it's more of going to be a point fight, and it's going to be Kamaru winning. And it wasn't. It was Leon. It was a point fight, and Leon won. So, again, I'm very impressed with Leon's performance. I'm very excited for his next fight. Before the fight, Leon said publicly, Kamaru couldn't even beat me in my worst night. He said at Salt Lake City was the worst fight night he's had in forever, and I have to agree that's the worst I've ever seen Leon Edwards. I think, personally watching him live, like, obviously I didn't watch the first Kamaru and Leon fight that was on early prelims a long time ago. I wasn't a diehard fan. So I have to agree with Leon that his worst performance I've seen by him was in Salt Lake, and he made a big deal about the elevation. We did see a lot of people that night get tired because of the elevation, and he was saying that, here in England without the elevation, I'm going to be fine. So for everybody saying that it was just an excuse and that wasn't his worst performance, he couldn't beat Kamaru, I mean, he's right, I guess, right? Like he said, it was his worst performance, and as we see, he just went out there and beat Kamaru again. And I can't remember exactly who. I think it was Teddy Atlas who tweeted out before the fight happened. He said, one of his old trainers or one of his trainers used to say that as soon as you win the title, you become 30% better. I kind of agree with Teddy Atlas, man. Like, Leon looked a lot better than he did the first fight. I know he said the first fight was a fluke. He did he wasn't feeling it that night, but he really came out, showed some improvements, and he outpointed Kamaru Usman, which I thought was very impressive. So for my very first UFC pay-per-view recap, I feel like this isn't the worst video. I definitely left some stuff out. My notes aren't like super in-depth, obviously. They're going to get nothing but better. I mean, you can't get worse. I'm starting at the bottom. There's no way my stuff can get worse. So I greatly appreciate everybody watching my very first UFC event recap. I think I'm going to try to do this I'm definitely going to try to do this for every pay-per-view. I would love to try to do it for fight nights, but honestly, some fight nights are horrible, some fight nights are great. So if it's a great fight night, I'll definitely make a video about it. If it's kind of like a lackluster fight night, maybe I'll make like a 2 or 3 minute kind of like summary of what actually happened. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, drop a like. Let me know down below in the comments what your fight of the night was, something that surprised you about UFC 286, and let me know who you think Leon's going to fight next, who you think Justin's going to fight next. Yeah, man, it's crazy. I love MMA. I'm so glad I started this channel, and thank you again. Have a great night. Peace.